The stars were silent as Daniel's small ship moved through the edge of the galaxy. He was a lone explorer from Earth, traveling alone for many months. Most people stayed away from this area. It was far from the safe zones and full of danger. But Daniel was not like most people. He liked the silence, the mystery, and the unknown. One day, while checking his ship's scanner, he saw something strange. A weak signal appeared on the screen. It blinked in and out, like it was almost gone. He adjusted the frequency and listened closely. It was a distress call. Very old, very broken, but real help. Please, someone. They're coming. That was all he could hear. Daniel looked at the coordinates. They pointed to a small asteroid hidden in a dust cloud. No name, no colony, just a rock in space. His instincts told him to ignore it. It could be a trap or nothing at all, but his heart said something else. Someone needed help, and he couldn't just fly away. He changed course and flew toward the asteroid. As he got closer, the signal grew stronger. He landed his ship quietly, scanning the surface. No buildings, no lights, just caves and rocks. He put on his suit and stepped outside. The air was thin, dry, and cold. His boots made soft sounds on the dusty ground. He followed the signal deeper into the caves. Suddenly, he heard something, a soft cry. He moved slowly, carefully, and then he saw them. Hiding behind a rock were two figures, an alien woman and a small girl, both shaking with fear. They looked weak and hungry. The woman had cuts on her face, and the child clung to her tightly. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. When they saw Daniel, they froze. The woman pulled the child behind her and raised a broken piece of metal like a weapon. "Please," she said in a weak voice. "Don't hurt us." Daniel raised his hands. Showing he had no weapon, "I'm here to help," he said softly. "I got your signal." The woman stared at him, confused. "You? You are human," she said. Daniel nodded. "Yes," he replied, "but I'm not here to fight." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't lower the metal piece. "They will." "Come back," she whispered. "They always come back." "Who?" Daniel asked, stepping closer. "The slavers," she said. "They took my mate. They burned our ship. We ran, but they followed." She looked at her daughter. "We've been hiding for days." Daniel looked around, listening. He didn't hear anything yet. "We need to get out of here," he said. "My ship is nearby. I can take you somewhere safe." The woman hesitated, then slowly lowered the metal piece. She was too tired to fight, too scared to trust, but something in Daniel's voice made her believe him. She nodded, and together, they helped the little girl stand. As they walked back through the cave, the little girl suddenly stopped. Her glowing eyes widened, and she grabbed Daniel's hand. He looked down, surprised. "What is it?" he asked. The girl said nothing, but pointed toward the darkness. A deep, hollow sound echoed from behind them, like engines, rough and angry. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "They found us," he whispered. He picked up the girl and told the woman to run. They rushed back to the ship, breathing hard as they entered. The sensors beeped loudly. 3 enemy ships were coming fast. Daniel closed the hatch and started the engines. The ship shook as he lifted off the asteroid. Outside, he could see the slaver ships chasing them. "They really don't want you to escape," he said. The woman sat down, holding her daughter close. "We are nothing to them," she said quietly. "Just property. Just things to sell." Daniel looked at her, then at the stars ahead. "Not to me," he replied. "Ah, you're safe now, I promise." But as the ship moved into hyperspace, he knew this was just the beginning. Something big was happening, and he was now a part of it. The stars stretched like silver threads as Daniel's ship jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, the slaver ships vanished into the darkness. For a few moments, there was peace. But inside the ship, the air was heavy with fear and silence. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat. Eyes on the control screen, he knew they had escaped. But it didn't feel like victory yet. The alien woman sat on the floor, holding her daughter tightly. They were safe, but they didn't believe it yet. Daniel turned around, speaking gently. "You're not hurt, right?" The woman nodded slowly. "No, but we are tired," she said. Her voice was quiet, like someone who had forgotten how to speak with hope. The little girl looked at Daniel with wide, glowing eyes. She didn't cry, she didn't speak, she just stared. Daniel reached for a protein bar and handed it to the woman. "Here, you need food," he said. She took it with shaky hands and gave it to her daughter first. For a few minutes, there was only the sound of chewing and the soft hum of cum. The ship. Daniel leaned back and took a breath. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "Why were those slavers after you?" The woman hesitated, then finally spoke. "My name is Vera, and this is my daughter, Kayla," she said. "We come from a planet called Narella, far away from here." Daniel listened quietly. Vera's voice was calm but full of pain. "I was a scientist," she continued. "We studied energy, light, and thought. But then, something changed." She looked at her daughter, then back at Daniel. Kayla was born different. She could feel people's emotions, even thoughts sometimes, in our world. That kind of power was dangerous. Some were afraid of her, others wanted to use her. Vera's eyes filled with tears. "They took my mate," she said. "They came at night, burned our home, and tried to take Kayla. I ran. We hid in cargo ships, mining stations, anywhere we could. But the Zarkai always found us." Daniel frowned. He had heard of the Zarkai. No, they were not just slavers. They were hunters of the rare and the gifted. To them, Kayla was a treasure. A small child with power, sold for millions, used like a tool. Daniel's jaw tightened. "You've been running all this time?" Vera nodded. "For 3 cycles, maybe more," she said. "I lost count. Then I found an old beacon, used it to send a message, but didn't think anyone would hear." Daniel leaned forward. "Well, I heard it," he said. "And I'm not going to let them take her." Kayla suddenly moved closer to Daniel. She touched his hand gently, and for a second, a soft image appeared in his mind. It was her memory of a quiet home, a garden, her father smiling, then fire, shouting, shadows grabbing her. Daniel pulled back, shocked. "She showed you," Vera said softly. "She doesn't speak much, but she shares." Daniel looked at Kayla with new eyes. She wasn't just a scared child. She was something rare, something powerful, and now she trusted him. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Daniel said. "Somewhere the Zarkai won't find you." Vera shook her head. "There is no safe place," she said. "They always find us." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe they haven't met the right human yet." He said, "This time, they'll have to go through me." He stood up and walked to the back of the ship. There, he opened a storage locker and pulled out an old, worn-out datapad. It still had a few trusted contacts, people who owed him favors. Old war friends, smugglers, and ex-soldiers. "If we can reach Haven 7, we might find help," he said. "It's a secret colony." Not on any map. Vera stood up too, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. "You would risk all that for us?" Daniel nodded. "I've seen enough evil in the galaxy," he said. "Helping someone is the least I can do." Suddenly, the ship's warning lights flashed red. Daniel rushed back to the controls. They dropped a tracker. He growled. "Zarkai ships, 3 of them, incoming in 10 minutes. Vera gasped. Daniel's hands moved quickly across the controls. "We can't outrun them," he said, "but maybe we can trick them." He tapped into a nearby asteroid field. "We'll hide in there and drop false signals," as he guided the ship into the field. Giant rocks floated past like sleeping giants. The chase had begun again, but this time, Daniel was ready. And he wasn't running away. He was running toward something worth protecting. The asteroid field was behind them now. Daniel's ship floated in calm space again. The Zarkai had been fooled for now, but Daniel knew they wouldn't stop for long. Inside the ship, Vera sat beside her daughter Kayla. Kayla was finally asleep, her small body wrapped in a blanket. She looked peaceful, but Vera's heart was full of worry. Daniel entered the room, carrying a hot drink for Vera. "We're almost there," he said. Handing her the cup, Vera took it with a quiet nod. "Where is this place again?" she asked. Daniel smiled faintly. "A planet called Valdernine," he said. "Small, quiet, not on many maps. Refugees, traders, and farmers live there. A good place to disappear." Vera didn't respond. She stared out the window. Watching the stars pass by, she had seen too many safe places before, and every time the Zarkai had found them. An hour later, Valdernine appeared on the screen. A green and blue world full of forests and rivers. It looked peaceful, like a dream. Daniel guided the ship down through the clouds. They landed near a small town hidden in the hills. Old ships and machines were scattered across the ground. People walked slowly, their faces tired but calm, as Daniel stepped outside. A tall man approached him. He wore a dusty coat and carried a plasma tool. "Name's Bren," he said, shaking Daniel's hand. "I run the repairs here," Daniel smiled. "We're just passing through. Need some rest, fuel, and maybe a place to stay for a while." Bren nodded. "We don't ask questions here," he said. "But trouble has a way of following people." Daniel didn't answer that. He helped Vera and Kayla out of the ship. Bren's eyes widened a little when he saw them, but he said nothing. He led them to a small cabin on the edge of the settlement. It was simple: 1 room, 2 beds, and a heater. That night, the wind blew softly through the trees. Kayla slept peacefully for the first time in days. Vera sat by the window, watching the moonlight. Daniel stood behind her, arms crossed. "You don't trust this place," he said. Vera shook her head. "It's too quiet," she whispered. "Danger always hides behind quiet." Daniel said nothing, but deep down, he felt the same. Still, they needed rest, even if it was only for a night. The next morning, Daniel went to the market to buy supplies. While he was there, he felt eyes on him. A man stood near a corner, pretending to look at fruit, but his hand held a small communicator hidden in his sleeve. Daniel's heart sank. He returned to the cabin quickly. "Pack your things," he said sharply. "They know we're here." Vera's eyes widened. But how? Daniel checked his ship's tracker. It was clean. Then he remembered Bren's words. Trouble follows people. They rushed back to the ship, but it was too late. 3 Zarkai ships appeared in the sky, blocking their path. Bren stood beside one of them, a smile on his face. "I sold your location for credits," he said. "Nothing personal." Daniel's fists clenched. "You betrayed a child for money," he growled. Bren shrugged. "Out here, survival costs something." Kayla stepped forward, her small hand glowing faintly. The Zarkai soldiers hesitated, sensing something strange. Daniel took the moment and threw a flash grenade. Smoke filled the air, and they ran for the trees. They didn't stop running until the sun went down. Deep in the forest, they hid in a hollow tree cave. Kayla was shaking, Vera's arms around her. Daniel was breathing hard, his face dirty and bruised. "I'm sorry," he said. "I thought this place was different." Vera didn't blame him. "They always find us," she whispered, "no matter where we go." Daniel looked at them both. He had promised safety and failed, but he wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. "We can't keep hiding," he said. "We need to fight back." Vera looked surprised. "Fight the Zarkai?" "They are many. We are few." Daniel smiled, a spark in his eyes. Sometimes. All it takes is the right plan and a little help. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small data disk. Inside this are old contacts, people who fought with me before. Some are pirates, some are rebels, but all of them hate the Zarkai. Vera looked at the disk, then at Daniel. You want to call them? Daniel nodded. We can't do this alone, he said, but together, maybe we can give Kayla a future. Kayla looked up, her eyes glowing softly. She reached out and touched the disk. A warm light passed through it. Daniel stared in surprise. What did she do? Vera smiled for the first time. She showed them a message. She said, "Now they know we're coming." The forest was quiet, but danger still hung in the air. Daniel sat by the fire, checking his blaster. Kayla slept beside her mother. Wrapped in an old cloak, Vera's eyes were open, staring at the flames. It had been 2 days since the betrayal on Valdernine. They were deeper in the wild now, far from towns, far from people. Daniel had sent the signal using Kella's light. Now they waited, hoping someone out there would hear it. The night sky above was full of stars, but none of them offered safety. Vera broke the silence, her voice soft. She trusts you. Daniel looked up, surprised. Kayla. Vera nodded. She never lets anyone touch her, not even traitors who offered food. But she held your hand without fear. Daniel smiled faintly. She's brave, like her mother. Vera shook her head slowly. No, I was not brave. She said, I only ran. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. Running isn't weakness. It means you chose to live, to protect her. That takes more courage than most have. Vera looked down at the sleeping child. Her voice trembled as she spoke again. There were others. Long ago, she said, our people had a gift. Not many, just a few. Kayla was born during the eclipse under the twin moons. The old ones said she would see light even in the deepest dark. Daniel listened quietly. Vera's words felt like a story from another world. But the pain behind them was real. They feared her, she continued. They said her powers would bring war, or worse. They called us cursed. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder gently. You didn't deserve that. Vera nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. One night, a friend warned me. She said they were coming for her. I took Kayla and fled. She looked at Daniel. Her eyes now filled with sorrow. We lost everything, our home, our names, even our sky. Daniel felt a heaviness in his chest, not just anger toward the Zarkai, but sadness for what had been taken. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small square device. A memory projector. Show me, he said. Vera looked confused. Your home, your world. Daniel explained, I want to see it. She hesitated, then took the device and pressed a sequence. A soft blue light filled the air, floating images. Appeared a garden with golden flowers, a crystal lake, a tower reaching into the clouds. Kayla opened her eyes, drawn by the light. She touched the projection and new images bloomed like petals. A tall man with warm eyes held her in his arms. He smiled, spinning her in circles while she laughed. Then fire, shadows, and a broken necklace falling to the ground. The light flickered, and Kayla pulled her hand back. Daniel blinked, shaken by the images. That was your mate, he said quietly. Vera nodded. He died trying to protect us, she whispered. I saw it happen. And I couldn't stop it. Daniel clenched his fists. You were never meant to carry that alone. Vera looked at him, surprised by his words. Daniel continued. Pain can break us, or bind us. Let it bind us so we can fight back together. Kayla crawled into Daniel's lap, her eyes glowing faintly. She touched his chest and whispered her first words since they met. Safe. Daniel's eyes widened. Vera gasped softly. Covering her mouth, she spoke. Daniel looked down at the girl. He felt something deep inside, a bond forming, unspoken but powerful. "I'll keep you safe," he whispered, "no matter what it takes." The fire crackled as the night grew deeper. Suddenly, a beep came from Daniel's communicator. He grabbed it quickly and checked the message. A symbol appeared on the screen, an old mark from a forgotten war. He smiled. "They heard us," he said. Vera stood up, hope rising in her eyes. "Who are they?" Daniel looked at the stars. "Old friends," he replied. "People who fought for freedom. People who hate the Zarkai as much as I do. They call themselves the Black Shield." A new energy filled the camp. Not fear, but purpose. Daniel packed up quickly. "They'll meet us at a hidden outpost in 3 days," he said. "It's not far, but the road won't be easy." Vera nodded, holding Kayla close. "We'll go," she said firmly. "We're done hiding." As they walked into the dark forest, Kayla looked up at the sky. She pointed at the moon and whispered again, "Home." Daniel didn't know if she meant her old world or something new. But one thing was clear. Home wasn't just a place. It was the people who stood beside you when all hope seemed lost, and together they were ready to take the first step toward something greater. The wind blew softly through the mountain pass as Daniel, Vera, and Kayla made their way through thick mist. It had been 2 days since they left the forest. The air was colder now, the path narrower. But Daniel moved with purpose. He checked the old map on his wrist device and nodded. "We're close," he said. Vera looked tired, but her eyes were alert. Kayla held her hand, glowing softly like a tiny lantern in the fog. They reached the edge of a rocky cliff where metal ruins stood half buried in the ground. An old war base, long abandoned. Daniel pressed a hidden switch on the side of a wall. A door hissed open, revealing a dark tunnel with flickering lights. "This used to be a Black Shield outpost," he explained. "We used it during the border wars. No one comes here anymore." Inside, the air was dry and filled with dust. But it was safe, at least for now. Daniel activated a power cell, and lights flickered to life. A round table lit up in the center of the room, showing a holographic map of the system. Kayla sat down on the floor, playing quietly with a small piece of metal. Vera stood beside Daniel, watching him work. "What now?" she asked. Daniel looked at her and smiled. "Now, we stop running," he said. He tapped a few buttons, and the map zoomed in on a Zarkai slave ship called the Grinder. It was massive, a flying fortress used to hold prisoners and rare/rare beings like Kayla. "They think they're safe in there," Daniel said. "But we're going to tear that place apart from the inside." Vera's eyes widened. "You want to break into that ship?" Daniel nodded. "I've done it before," he said. "Not this ship, but others like it. If we can get inside, we can destroy their slave registry and free the ones still trapped." Vera looked unsure. "That ship will be guarded," she said. Daniel pointed at the blinking light on the map, "which is why I called in help, right on cue." The sound of engines echoed outside the base. Daniel rushed out, followed by Vera and Kayla. 3 small ships landed nearby, and out stepped a group of fighters, rough, scarred, but smiling when they saw Daniel. A tall woman with a robotic arm walked forward and hugged him. "Still saving the galaxy, Danny?" she said with a grin. "Trying," he replied. "Glad you came, Ren." Ren looked at Vera and Kayla and gave a respectful nod. "So this is the family we're risking our necks for." Daniel nodded proudly. "Meet Vera and her daughter, Kayla. They're the reason we're doing this." Ren turned to her crew. "All right, people," she shouted. "Get the gear inside and prep the charges. We've got a slaver ship to crack open." Back inside the outpost, Daniel spread the plan on the table. "We're going to split into 2 teams," he explained. "Team A gets captured on purpose, goes inside as fake prisoners. Team B follows behind in stealth mode and disables the outer weapons." Vera looked at him seriously. "Who will be the bait?" Daniel didn't hesitate. Me, he said. I know how their systems work, and they know my face. They'll think it's revenge. Vera stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. You don't have to do this alone, she said. Daniel smiled. I won't be alone, he said, looking at the group around him. I have all of you. Later that night, the team prepared quietly. Ren checked the explosives. The others loaded weapons. Vera taught Kayla how to use a small emergency shield. Daniel sat with Kayla, his voice calm. Tomorrow is going to be loud, he said, but you'll be safe with Ren, okay? Kayla nodded slowly. Then, without warning, she placed her hand on Daniel's head. A soft light passed between them, and Daniel gasped. He saw an image himself. Standing in a storm of light, fighting off shadows with Kayla glowing behind. Him. She's showing you a vision, Vera said. She believes in you. Daniel opened his eyes. Still breathing heavily, she sees the future. He asked, Not always, Vera replied. Just moments that matter. Daniel stood up, more determined than ever. This is one of those moments, he said. The moment we stop being hunted. The moment we take them. Fight to them as the stars shined outside the outpost. A storm of change was building, not just in the galaxy, but in the hearts of those ready to fight for Vera, for Kayla, and for all the forgotten ones trapped in chains. Daniel had a plan. And this time, he wasn't running. He was charging straight into the fire, and he wasn't coming alone. The stars above the planet were quiet. But tension filled the space around them like thunder before a storm. Daniel's ship floated silently in the shadow of a cold moon. Beside him were two other ships from the Black Shield fighters, all hidden from enemy scans. Inside, Daniel wore a prisoner's uniform, wrists locked with magnetic cuffs. Ren stood beside him, dressed as a bounty hunter, acting her part with cold eyes and a blaster on her hip. This is a bad plan, she whispered. Daniel grinned. It's the only one we've got, from the corner. Kayla and Vera watched. In silence, Kayla had tears in her eyes, her little hands glowing slightly. She didn't want Daniel to go, but she understood. She always did. Vera knelt and hugged him tightly. You come back, she whispered. You promised, Daniel. Nodded. I will, he said. No chains can hold me. The ships broke silence and flew straight toward the grinder. The Zarkai's main slave ship. It was a monster of metal, floating like a fortress in deep space. Guards on the outer rim scanned the ships and let them pass. Ren sent a forged bounty code that worked perfectly inside the enemy hangar. Metal. Doors opened with a loud hiss. Zarkai soldiers waited with rifles, their armor black and sharp, like blades. They didn't speak, only took Daniel and dragged him away. Ren gave a slow nod before turning back to her ship. Daniel walked calmly, counting the steps in his head. He studied every corner, every door, every camera. He had one goal: get to the control room, unlock the cells, and set the charges elsewhere. In stealth mode, Team B entered the back hangar through a maintenance port. Vera moved with quiet speed, her blaster ready. Kayla stayed behind in the safe zone with two guards. Protected and watched carefully. She was scared, but she trusted her mother. The enemy ship was huge, with metal hulls like dark tunnels. Prisoners were locked in energy cells, weak and silent. Many had lost hope, their eyes empty from years of pain. Daniel passed them as he was pushed down the hallway. A guard kicked open the final door and threw him into a dark room. The commander of the ship sat there, tall, with glowing red eyes and voice like gravel. So, he growled, the famous human returns. I thought we killed your kind off, Daniel. Smiled through the blood on his lip. Guess I'm harder to kill than you thought. The commander stepped closer. You brought the girl, didn't you? Daniel said nothing outside the room. Ren and her team placed explosives on the fuel tanks and main power lines. They moved fast, silent like shadows. One of the guards noticed movement and raised the alarm. Red lights flashed across the ship. Sirens screamed through the halls. Daniel saw his chance. He leaned back and pressed the small switch hidden in his sleeve. His cuffs fell open with a click, and in one move, he grabbed a pipe and hit the commander across the face. The fight had begun at the same time. Vera entered the control room with her team. She shot the guards without hesitation and ran to the console, opening cell doors, she said, pressing the buttons all across the ship. Energy fields dropped, and prisoners looked up in shock. Daniel moved through the chaos, freeing more captives and giving weapons to anyone who could stand. The grinder had become a battlefield. Slaves fought back. Guards panicked. And explosions rocked the walls. Kayla, feeling the fear and anger from afar, stood up. Her eyes glowed. Brighter than ever before, she stepped outside the safe zone, followed only by one guard. "I have to go," she whispered. She placed her hand on the floor. A wave of light shot out, passing through walls and wires. Suddenly, Daniel felt a warmth. Around him, his wounds stopped bleeding. His strength returned. Kayla was helping him from afar, her light guiding him. Vera saw the light too and smiled. "That's my girl," she said proudly. The final fight happened in the engine core. Daniel faced the commander again, this time with a stolen blade. They clashed, sparks flying everywhere. "You think kindness will win?" the commander hissed. Daniel struck hard and fast. "No," he said, "but hope might." With a final blow, Daniel knocked the commander into the reactor. He fell with a scream as fire burst behind him. "Ren, is the ship ready?" Daniel called through the comm. "All charges set." She replied, "Time to go." Everyone rushed back to the escape pods. Vera grabbed Kayla and held her tight. Daniel entered last and hit the launch. As they flew away, the grinder exploded. Behind them, a bright fireball lit up the stars. Cheers filled the pods for the first time in years. The prisoners were free. Daniel looked at Kayla, who smiled and whispered, "Safe." The remains of the slave ship floated silently in the void. All that was left of the grinder was a cloud of metal, dust, and sparks fading into space. Daniel's escape pod drifted gently toward the surface of a green moon nearby. Behind him, other pods followed like stars falling toward a quiet world. Kayla sat beside him, her small hand resting in his. Her eyes were closed, but her face was peaceful. She was resting not just from exhaustion, but from the weight she had carried for so long. Vera sat across from them, her face streaked with dirt, her arm bruised, but her smile soft and true. She looked at Daniel and nodded slowly. "We did it," she said quietly. Daniel leaned his head back and exhaled. "Yeah," he said, "we did." The pod landed in a grassy field surrounded by strange blue trees. The air was warm, and birds with crystal feathers flew above them in slow circles. This was an untouched world, unclaimed, free, and hidden. Ren had sent the coordinates after the mission. A safe haven used only by Black Shield veterans. Daniel helped Vera and Kayla out of the pod. Other survivors stepped onto the grass, some blinking in the sunlight, some kneeling and kissing the ground. It had been years since they had felt freedom. Now, every breath was a gift. The fighters set up a temporary camp, building shelters, gathering supplies from the pods. Daniel stayed near Kayla, watching her draw shapes in the dirt with a stick. "She's different now," he said. Vera nodded. "She feels lighter," she replied. Like she finally believes she's safe. Daniel watched her for a moment, then asked, "What will you do now?" Vera looked up at the sky, her eyes thoughtful. "I don't know," she said, "but I want to stay here. If we're allowed a new life, without fear." Daniel smiled. "You've earned it," he said. "So has she." That night, a fire was lit in the middle of the camp. Survivors gathered around it, eating, laughing. some even singing songs in strange languages. Kayla sat in Daniel's lap, her eyes glowing with joy as she listened. One of the freed prisoners, a young alien boy, gave her a crystal flower he had, made from ship parts. She smiled, the widest smile Daniel had ever seen. He felt something in his chest shift, something deep and quiet. Not duty, not guilt, something like love. Later, Vera sat beside him, looking at the stars. "You could leave, you know," she said softly. "You have no reason to stay." Daniel looked at her and shook his head. "I have every reason to." "Stay," he replied. She turned toward him. Surprised, Daniel pointed toward Kayla, who was now sleeping near the fire. "She showed me something back on the ship," he said. "She showed me standing in light, fighting off darkness. I thought it was just about that battle, but I think it was more." Vera's eyes softened. "More?" Daniel nodded. "A future," he said. "One I didn't know I wanted for the first time in years." Daniel didn't feel like a soldier. He didn't feel like a drifter or a man chasing ghosts. He felt something solid beneath his feet. A reason to live, not just survive. In the days that followed, life began to grow in the camp. People built homes from the parts of the escape pods. Vera started teaching others how to grow food using alien plants. Daniel helped with defense systems and trained others in basic survival. Kayla made friends, learned to laugh, and sometimes even sang. She still had her powers, but she no longer feared them. Instead, she used them to help, to heal, to bring light into the lives around her. One evening, as the sky turned purple and gold, Daniel stood with Vera, watching Kayla chase a small, glowing creature through the tall grass. "She's happy," Vera said. Daniel smiled. "She is." Vera looked at him and asked quietly, "What about you?" Daniel turned to her. "I think I'm finally home," he said. They stood in silence for a moment, the breeze soft around them. Then Vera reached out and took his hand, not out of need, but out of choice. The stars above them blinked gently. Far across the galaxy, the Zarkai would learn of the ship's destruction, of the uprising, the lost cargo, and the human who started it. Rumors would spread, stories would grow. Some would call him a rebel, others a fool. But to Kayla, he was the man who gave her a future. To Vera, he was the reason she could hope again. And to Daniel, he was finally something more than a name lost in space. He was a protector, he was a father, and for the first time, he was free.